How does King Charles stay fit? At the age of 74, King Charles will be the oldest person to be crowned monarch in the history of the United Kingdom when he attends the coronation on Saturday, May 6. But according to sources close to Charles, the king has been putting in the work to make sure he's up to the job and making sure he remains fit and spry. He reportedly starts each day with the 5BX fitness regime, designed for the Canadian Air Force in the 1950s. The 12-minute regime includes press-ups, sit-ups, back extensions, stretching and running on the spot. The name stands for 5 basic exercises. When staying at Balmoral, the king reportedly enjoys nothing more than a long yomp over the moors. It takes effort for a fit man half his age to keep up with him, one former aide told journalists. Many a VIP has fallen by the wayside over the years when they have gone off on a walk with him. Sources say he has kept up a regime of good diet and exercise throughout his life, making sure he maintains a weight of 11 stone 5 pounds. Though he has joked that keeping his weight down is a never-ending battle. Before talking about what King Charles might eat on a daily basis, it's important to note his overall view on food is that it should be in season and organic. As McGrady notes and former royal chef Carolyn Webb said in Marie Claire, everything was based on what was in season in the garden. In asparagus season, I might serve it 3 or 4 times a week. You wouldn't dare serve asparagus or strawberries in December. The family grew produce and raised their own animals on their many properties. The Queen and Charles kept bees, who had to be specially informed about her death. The Queen famously began growing produce at Buckingham Palace, and she loved her wild Scottish strawberries at Balmoral, which she was known to pick herself. Charles liked to forage for wild mushrooms there as well, as many fungi were found on the 50,000-acre Balmoral estate. According to McGrady, they would be gathered, sautéed with some herbs, and then frozen to use throughout the year. Additionally, Charles is reported to eschew meat for 2 days a week and dairy for 1 day a week. If more did that, you would reduce a lot of the pressure, he reportedly said about his efforts to reduce his carbon footprint. How serious is Charles about sustainability? Apparently, he has an old Aston Martin that runs on wine and cheese. In actuality, the Aston Martin was converted to run on E85 bioethanol made from byproducts of the wine and cheese industries in 2008, according to his own website. While, of course, a lot might change now that Charles is king, when he was prince his day started with a very healthy breakfast. Anecdotes of what it included change, but it was usually fresh fruit, muesli or some kind, or other whole grain mixed with seeds steeped in fruit juice and tea. McGrady notes in a video that he loved plums from the garden that have been lightly poached in juice with some muesli. Muesli was invented in Switzerland by a doctor, and was kind of like our modern-day overnight oats with oats, fruit, and seeds or nuts soaked in dairy or fruit juice. The difference between muesli and granola is that, like overnight oats, it is served without needing to cook it. As a prince, Charles was rumored to carry a breakfast box with him. Former royal chef Graham Newbould, once a chef on the royal yacht Britannia, said that the box would generally contain about 6 types of honey, muesli, and anything that's a bit special that he is a bit fussy about. As Charles and his mother were beekeepers, we're guessing it was his own special honey as well. Eggs were usually not included in breakfast, except on weekends, and he ate them only later in the day. Every source, even Charles's own former website before he became king, can vouch for one truth about the now king: he does not eat lunch. Numerous outlets have reported that King Charles skips lunch altogether unless it is part of the duty of the day. When Charles turned 70, his website put out a list of 70 facts about the then prince, and number 20 was simply, the prince does not eat lunch. Perhaps he subsists all day on his favorite tea, which is Darjeeling with honey and milk. Chef Grady supports this, noting that, at least during his tenure, it happened rarely. There may be a lunch, there may not be a lunch, said Grady. Maybe a sandwich. Sometimes if he was out painting in the countryside he'd bring a sandwich. One thing the seasoned staff knew, reports Mashable, is that they needed to eat a big breakfast because if Charles had a busy day, there would be no stopping. What about those boiled eggs? Those were reported to come later in the day, around 5:30 p.m. when Charles sat down for tea. Perhaps he would even have them with crumpets, which he is reportedly fond of. One thing that keeps coming up over and over again is how seriously King Charles views his boiled eggs. The rumors that he had the kitchen prepare 7 eggs that he would choose from for the perfect 3 or 4-minute egg, according to different reports, were untrue, according to his former press secretary, Julian Payne. But according to Charles's former personal chef, they needed to boil for exactly 4 minutes, though others report 3. Suffice it to say he was serious about his eggs, and they may have come from his own chickens, perhaps from Highgrove. What King Charles doesn't eat during the day he makes up for with dinner. Those wild mushrooms foraged from Balmoral figure prominently in his favorite dinner, which McGrady says is seared lamb served with wild mushroom risotto. Watch McGrady prepare the actual dish. He was also known to make up his own dishes with the wild game he hunted. His version of moussaka with grouse even had its own special name, grousaka. If dessert is ever on the menu, Charles is unlikely to partake in anything chocolate. Unlike his late mother who loved it, he reportedly doesn't care for it at all. Charles also likes to avoid banquets whenever possible, both at home when entertaining guests. He prefers a drinks reception when hosting, and when abroad. He reportedly tries to minimize foreign banquets as, there are parts of the world where people might have left food out all day because they want to make sure it's ready. People who have worked for him for a long time have stories of him being very ill before having to make a major speech, a royal source said. The king travels with his own private chef, reportedly to minimize the chances of food poisoning. It might seem like an extravagance, a source told the paper, but it's an absolute necessity to have your food prepared by your own team as often as possible, because it minimizes the danger of food poisoning. He is very aware that when you're cresting 75, you have to do everything you can to maximize your efficiency as a tool of the state. He also takes his own stash of booze with him when he travels overseas, according to reports, to be mixed by his staff to his precise taste. He prefers a dry martini. As well as a chef and stock bar, Charles always travels with a doctor, one of a roster of GPs, who use their annual leave to accompany the monarch on trips abroad. In his leisure time the king was once famously fond of playing polo on horseback, but several injuries left him with a broken arm, and needing stitches for a cut on his face. A degenerative back problem from polo saw him in pain, and unable to sit still, even having to receive some visitors lying on his back in the early 1990s. Prince Harry revealed in his autobiography Spare that his father would also do daily headstands in his underwear to alleviate his back pain. He performed them daily, in a pair of boxers, propped against a door or hanging from a bar like a skilled acrobat, he wrote. Charles's medical run-ins don't end there. Bizarrely, the new monarch had his tonsils removed when he was 8, and insisted on carrying them with him in a glass jar at all times for several months.